Hey folks, my name is Dr. Jamara Welch and you're watching Supermodel Society TV, where we seek to influence, educate, and inspire. Did you know that on average, African American college graduates make less money than whites with a college degree, as well as whites with only a high school diploma? I guess whoever said education is the great equalizer wasn't speaking in terms of economics. For today's episode, I'm going to be talking with you about the student loan debt crisis and the African American community. Stay tuned for more. I'm sure that we all can agree that a college degree is undoubtedly a significant milestone and a door opener for many, as it increases one's knowledge, their skills, and their network. But for some, it often comes with a price that far too often stifles economic progress. While some students enter college with the advantage of a college savings account funded by their families, or even perhaps a financial aid package in the form of scholarships and grants, others are reliant upon loans to accomplish their educational goals. For some, such as myself, who have had to use loans to fund their degrees, in my case upwards of $200,000 plus for my master's and my PhD, I know that's a small mortgage. Demographic data shows that college loan debt is more detrimental in certain communities than others, specifically in the so-called Black or African American community. Concerning the student loan debt that I've acquired, I can honestly say the struggle is real. Sandy Baum, who's a non-resident senior fellow for the Urban Institute, points out that African American students are more likely to borrow than students from other racial and ethnic groups pursuing degrees in similar fields. African Americans are also more likely to borrow larger amounts of money and are also not as successful in repaying their loans, thereby making them more likely to default. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, that's NCES, an estimated 86.8% of African American students borrow federal student loans to attend a four-year public college, compared to 59.9% of white students. Data released by the U.S. Department of Education back in 2017 shows that nearly 50%, that's one out of every two, of African American borrowers who entered college for the first time in the 2003-2004 academic year went into default on their student loan debt within 12 years. Again, 1 in 2. Further data showed that the numbers did not improve almost a decade later. According to the Brookings Institute, Black borrowers are more than 3 times as likely to default within 4 years of graduation as white borrowers. Without question, loan default is a crisis among Black borrowers, and it has persisted even with the multiple loan repayment options created by federal policymakers to assist those struggling with debt. With rising tuition costs outpacing inflation and wage growth, many students are struggling to afford college. In fact, about 44 million Americans owe more than $1.48 trillion in student loan debt. What's more, the student loan debt crisis prevents millions of young Americans from home ownership, from starting families, from saving for retirement, and from generating wealth. These deleterious effects are even greater for the African American community, as African American students are often held back more by student loan debt in comparison to other groups. For example, Black students are 20% more likely than white students to need federal student loans for college. On average, as a partial consequence, they graduate with about $7,400 more in student loan debt in contrast to their white counterparts. Earning a college degree is just the beginning of the student loan debt disparity for many African Americans. Black college graduates entering the workforce with recently earned degrees are not only faced with the obstacles of securing a job in their actual field of study, but that is often coupled with a loan repayment that starts just 6 months after graduation. And when looking at the next few years, after earning a 4-year degree, the Black-white debt gap more than triples to a whopping $25,000. As pointed out by the Brookings Institute, differences in interest accrual and graduate school borrowing lead to Black graduates holding nearly $53,000 in student loan debt 4 years after graduation. That's almost twice as much as their white counterparts. As the only sure way to get rid of debt is to pay it off. When looking at student loan debt paydown rates between Blacks and whites, white borrowers pay down their education debt faster at a rate of 10% per year. In contrast, Black borrowers pay down student loan debt at a rate of 4% annually. Not surprisingly, the longer it takes a borrower to pay down their debt, the more interest they will have to pay, thereby increasing their total debt. So, what are the major contributors to the student loan debt crisis that are distinctly stratified across racial lines? Well, given the United States' pernicious persistence in systematic racism, I know, big surprise, right? Which is very much evidenced in the labor force, there is no surprise that more often than not, Black students are at a financial disadvantage when it comes to higher education debt outcomes. This disadvantage is 4 centuries old, and it's a disadvantage which started long before it was time for them to enroll in college. Mark Hulsman, I hope I'm saying his name correctly, is a senior policy analyst for Demos. He stated, quote, "We cannot think of student loan debt in isolation from other areas of our economy. Long-standing racism in the labor market has resulted in a country where Black families with college degrees have lower average net worth than white families with a high school education or less," end quote. In the world of economics, debt, including student loan good debt, lowers a person's net worth. In addition to racism in the labor market, the cost to attend college is increasingly outpacing the rate of inflation, as well as the growth in family income. Further, need-based grant aid designed to defray costs for low-income students has also dwindled as a percentage of college cost. Needless to say, this means that the students who already have the most difficulties financing their education, namely lower income African Americans as well as Latinos, end up borrowing the most and sadly defaulting the most. Hulsman notes that low income graduates, those who received a Pell Grant while they were in school, they borrow at far higher rates and in higher amounts than their middle and upper income counterparts at both 2- and 4-year institutions, regardless of the type of the institution attended and despite receiving thousands of dollars in grant aid. And as stated earlier on, Black students borrow at much higher rates and in higher amounts to receive the same degrees as their white counterparts. In addition to that, as stated at the top of today's episode, I mentioned that African American college graduates often make less money than both whites with a college degree or whites with only a high school diploma. In fact, research shows that they make 30% less. I know it's crazy. Even so, when looking at the data, this begs the question, what can be done to help alleviate these disparities? To begin, alternatives to student borrowing need to be explored. For example, policy recommendations have been proposed, such as a call for an increase in need-based grant opportunities. In one such policy recommendation, it was the 2014 Affordable College Compact by Demos. Mark Hulsman notes that there should be a federal-state partnership that would allow the federal government to use its leverage to encourage states to increase state spending and develop policy and plans to ensure that the majority of poor, working, as well as middle-class students can attend college without incurring debt or financial hardship. In 2012, Demos also developed what is called the Contract for College. As noted in the policy's design, existing strands of federal financial aid, for example, grants, loans, and work study, would be unified into a coherent, guaranteed financial aid package for students. Further, grants would make up the bulk of the aid for students from low to middle income families. In addition to policy implications, there are also things that families can do to address this issue. For example, having a mindset to teach your children the value and importance of saving and investing early is critical. Providing children with the opportunity to be immersed in what's been called liberation education, which is learning how to start businesses, learning how to invest, learning how to purchase real estate, all of which are proven pillars of wealth. These are all practices that can work in a young person's favor, economically speaking, before going to college. As this is a type of re-educating that falls outside of the purview of your standard K-12 education, Black parents in particular would do well to supplement their children's education by seeking out resources that teach their children these powerful wealth-building strategies. One such resource, a resource that I've actually used with my own children, is the Black Millionaires of Tomorrow program. This program is by the Black Business School, which is an educational institution founded by finance professor and leading economist Dr. Boyce Watkins. While all are welcome to take these courses at this institution, the Black Business School was specifically established for the purposes of providing strong business education for Black people. To close, there's no question that a college degree and beyond has both social and political capital, and I'd also like to add, of course, obviously, economic capital. However, as a collective, we as African Americans would do well to better prepare for the financial responsibilities that come with having a degree. That means being informed and making our voices heard by exercising our civic rights to support governmental policies aimed toward making college more affordable. That's one way to do this. But more importantly, I believe that in the comfort of our own homes and with technology at our fingertips, we should empower ourselves with educational resources and tools designed for our community in mind that builds generational wealth. With that, I'm going to bring this to a close. I appreciate your time. If you found what I shared today valuable, then please like, share, and subscribe. To that, be blessed, and I'll catch you later. Take care.